Cold Rice Media.
Beginner level. I was already doing that in college, so people saw my resume, my portfolio. They're like, I don't want to just hire you as a designer. Can you be at the top of and help, help curate, help our creative department? Can you help lead? So of
Mm-hmm.
course I took
Mm-hmm.
it. And
Wow.
it was everything. It was a comeback for me. It was my bounce back. Yeah.
And so that then you're living obviously the dream at that point. I mean, did you
Yeah.
feel at that point very fulfilled or
Oh yeah, I
things?
did.
I mean, sometimes you have your highs and then you're just like, here I am. But as a person like you, I know
Yeah.
you always look around and be like, is this still true purpose? Is this,
Hmm.
that call 3 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
to tell you to get up? Was there always in the back, or were you like, I'm satisfied with this. Let's just keep
No.
this rolling.
I think it was in phases. I still had a very strong connection and relationship with God, and a lot of people actually this woman told me in Nebraska, one of a church members, she said, you know, normal women would be on the streets if they lived the life you lived.
Hmm.
Saying love obviously hurts, heartbreak obviously hurts, and it's enough heartbreak to put women out on the streets and become vulnerable, go down a life that they had never imagined,
Oh
that is
yeah.
way worse. And here I am preventing all of that. And I also had people in the church really just deny like my tenacity to go for it. Another guy was like, "You're never going to find a guy who will love you and your kids at the same time." So, of course, feeding into my fear of never getting into a relationship because I was already used. I'm already a mom. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And so it wasn't easy. So, a lot of my insecurities were still up against me, but I had to take things one at a time. And for you who has kids, sometimes looking at your kids is like, it's enough for me to wake up,
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
putting them to bed. Like you just kind of have to. You don't have time to think
Hmm.
as a parent. You don't have time to think. You don't have to have a plan, have time to think of a plan B. You just have to go do it. You have to make it happen.
It's mechanical and purpose at that point. So,
Yeah.
but you rebounded. Sounds like your
Yeah.
path of true career at that point.
I mean, it to the point, it was my first time really having a salary and getting
Hmm.
paid for what I love and what I do. And the biggest part of like conquering is I used to rely on food stamps, and they would tell me, "You make too much money as a family of 3. I'm sorry, we have to take your food stamps away." And I was like, "Don't be sorry. This is a
That's an accomplishment.
that's a, I know." I was like,
I'm off the leash. Okay.
"I'm off the leash. You don't have to tell me when I have to eat. You don't have to tell
Yeah.
me how much I can eat." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm finally doing it."
Wow.
But then the next part of that challenge was I actually got fired from this dream job. So
Okay.
here I am back again. You know what I mean? It's like I go through
Yeah.
a cycle of great, not so great, great, not so great, which is life. But that was like the next challenge of my life.
Yeah.
It's like,
But
what do I
that's
do
on your
next?
resume at that point. That made you a lot stronger as a person, as your own future brand.
I did, but I didn't go back to work after that. So there was no point of really having on my resume because I met Conrado, and my husband.
Hmm.
He's like master sales, networking,
Hmm.
talking to people. And
Hmm.
the time that I had got fired from this dream job, I had met him and he said, "Don't go back to work. Go be an entrepreneur." And I was like, "I don't even know how to spell that. I don't even know what an entrepreneur is. And how do you tell me to make my own money when I have kids? Like, I need something stable."
Hmm. Hmm.
But of course, I know the difference. I know what God sounds like, and I know what the devil sounds like. And thinking about him telling me to go back to an entrepreneur, the fear sounded like God. It wasn't fear of you're not going to do it, but fear of like there's something that you just don't know.
Hmm.
And I want you to be obedient and I want you to try. So I did. I tried over and over and over again.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
But then that tenacity just keeps it going. I mean, it
Yeah. Yeah.
if you have that intensity, that tenacity, that intention, it's
Yeah.
it's hard to fail.
It is. It to me, it's I feel like my middle name is also resilience. That's
Mm-hmm.
the one thing is
Mm-hmm.
like
Absolutely.
tenacity is resilience. And later down the road, after accomplishing just entrepreneurship, I got an award for resilience on Main Street, and I'm like, oh, there goes that word again. And I'm like, I guess that's just who I am,
Uh-huh.
right? And I guess my the moral to that is like you just never know what you're getting into ever, and you have to be able to discern like, is this fear excitement? Is that voice fear excitement, or is this fear don't do it? You know what I mean? I think you need to know what those voices are.
What was entrepreneurship for you? Like what was that when he said do it? And I mean, you could have done anything.
I could have done
You could,
anything, but I kept because of single mom mindset,
mm-hmm.
not really understanding what it means to be an entrepreneur because it's different from being a YouTuber. The reason why I stopped being a YouTuber is like I was like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I don't want to unbox things for the rest of my life. I want to be a businesswoman. Like I went to school for design, not to edit,
Mm-hmm.
YouTube videos. But I learned how to market myself, but not really, not to the full capacity of maybe turning it into money. So I got scared. I after Zara was born, I applied for Amazon Flex because I was like, I don't know what to do with my life, and so I kept running away from entrepreneurship life,
Mm-hmm.
the thought of it, and trying to revert back to a 9 to 5. I said, well, people said do what you love, so can I just apply for Red Robins because I love French fries? Is that what it means? Do what you love. And Conrado and I would get into an argument because he's like, don't do that. And I was like, I don't think you don't support me. You don't support my decisions. But he was like, it's not that I don't support you. I know you can do better.
Yeah.
I know you can do bigger, so don't waste your time. So, after much argument, because I like to win, he left me alone. I applied for Amazon Flex. All the red flags were happening, and I didn't see it. A an application that should only take a week took a couple months. They said that you can deliver your packages within 3 hours, which at the end of 3 hours, I still had 50 packages in my car. My GPS stopped working, and I probably was delivering the wrong packages to the wrong houses.
Mm.
So everything was up against me, and for God to tell me like this is not for you. And so I remember crying on my way home. The 411 had to like guide me back home, back
Oh
in
my god.
Seattle, and I was so embarrassed. And I remember just slumping back into the kitchen and Conrado and I having this heart to heart. My heart was just like floored. I was like, if I can't even do Amazon Flex, then what am I going to do for the rest of my life? And
Mm-hmm.
it took one question after minutes and minutes of speaking. And he said, if you could do one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be? Usually people say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be in finance. And all I said was, I just want to create. That's all I said. I said, I just want to create. I don't care what I create. I just want to create. So, because of how amazing he is, he went into the room, clickety clacked on the computer. And he's like, here you go. Here's a business license. Here's the social media. Now it's your turn. Yeah.
Wow.
He said, you go for it. I was like, ugh.
Amazing.
So I was like, oh, crap. Okay.
Okay.
Um,
No, but
yeah.
he saw, well, especially seeing that in you when you were like, you know what,
Oh, yeah.
I lost my job and everything. The fact that you decided, you know what, I'm gonna just grind. I mean, you went to driving. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's like almost that's higher level pizza delivery. But but it's more the core of I'm just gonna do this
Yeah.
because I got grind. That's interested in me. That's part of my DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he's sitting there is like she's holding herself back. Watch when she actually applies herself and
I know.
uses that and grind intentionally. And there it is.
Yep. Yep. And he's always that sound bite I need always.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I will, even till this day, and I'm not afraid to say it, I learned entrepreneurship because of him. Remember, I didn't know how to spell it.
Oh
Even
yeah.
till this
Oh
day, I gotta
yeah.
use like, auto spell. But
No, he grinds.
it was because of him.
Yeah, he grinds. And then so is that when Pixel Parlor was birthed, or what was
He,
between?
yes. I already had an idea of like what I wanted. I wanted a storefront. I wanted obviously just a studio. I'm like that
Mm-hmm.
artist who's just like I have a really messy studio and I can do whatever
Mm,
I want type of thing, but in a very organized way.
yeah.
Um, so I actually had a Pinterest board. I had photos I had saved of what this pixel parlor would look like, and Conrado went out to go find that studio space. He found that studio space, and then I'm like, we got the business license. I'm like, who's gonna pay me? And here we are. Conrado, who is such
What a
a
great question. Who's
who's
gonna pay me?
who's gonna pay me to
Here I
do
am.
this?
Uh
And
huh.
and it wasn't even just design. I wanted to do something different because again, I spent all my college designing. I was like, I also
Mm-hmm.
love photography and I feel like I'm very good at it. And so
Mm-hmm.
I had a camera, and then Conrado is also obviously telling people because he likes to promote and support. And so we put it on Facebook, and of course, my first client was Bill Pureford in Seattle, which is the
Mm,
number one place to buy Ford Shelbys in America.
mm-hmm. You're
And
true. I
and
worked there.
he, so you know,
I did.
and I didn't. He just said, "Hey, my friend wants to hire us as a photographer, like you as a photographer, taking pictures of cars." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how to do that." So I YouTubed it, and I didn't know that I was walking into, "Hey, these cars are going to be in a magazine."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh shoot." So obviously, I'm like, "That's what I love. My background isn't editorial." And I'm like, "I'm going to work very hard." And so we've been working with them year after year. Started off with just me taking pictures of cars in the lot to them recognizing me and saying, "Hey," and this is such a man thing, sex sells. So can you be in the video? Can we go from photography to video, and but we want you to be in it. And so I did both. And then they were selling cars and they're like, "Can you keep doing it over and over and over again?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they kept selling the cars. And I kept telling that narrative, not because sex sells, but because, okay, small town girl driving a really beautiful car, nice, expensive car.
Yeah.
DuPont Registry is very white American based. You only have to have X amount of money. I was like, no, I'm going to flip the narrative because I know how to do that. And women like me can own these cars and they don't have to be a millionaire. It could be like, this is my lifestyle. And
Unbelievable.
that's what I did.
So you're a photographer,
Yeah.
entrepreneur, car model
Ew, not even.
for a point.
Not
Not
even.
import model, just domestic vehicle. But
Right.
okay. So
Right.
they were your first client. I mean, wow. What a
They
they
were.
that
They
entire
were.
Lake City was there. So it's
Well,
were you
because
bopping
I
off
was
to
scared. I was scared because I was like, so Conrado had gotten me a studio. I said, how are we going to pay for this studio? And
hmm
of course, when you ask those questions, God's like, here you go. They were my
hmm
first paid client, and I was able to pay my rent every single
hmm
month by working with them, and it left the doors open for more clients too.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that brand management. Talk to me about that and how that ended up developing. Just because with it's still such a I believe during that time it was also ahead of its curve,
It,
right?
it was.
It seems like you're just like
I
YouTube
was
in
always ahead.
2012,
Right.
right? And it's like whoever is even thinking this and fine,
Mm-mm.
you want to do it, but who's gonna pay? Like who's gonna pay me? Because they're
Right.
like, what the heck is even brand? A
Yeah.
digital creation,
Yeah.
brand management. So
Right. Well,
such a hard sell.
I was so in college, nobody's thinking about brands unless you are a business owner, right?
Hmm
Big business owner. So I already knew what branding was. So again, here I am ahead of the curve. And then I get into a studio in 2018. Entrepreneurship is still rocky. People
hmm
don't really
hmm
know. And I'm like, this is easy. I've done it before many, many times. And so with brand management, when entrepreneurship started to get big because of social media, people were booking me for headshots. And it was my time to have a conversation with them and be like, what do you need these headshots for? And they would
Uh-huh.
say, 98% of them, oh, I'm going to start a business. I'm like, oh, tell me about it. Well, I'm going to get into business ABCDFG. I was working at a 9 to 5. I quit my soul sucking job. I'm really scared. I was like, oh, well, if you need business cards, let me know. They're like, oh, you're a designer. I'm like, yes, I'm actually a designer first. but I also do obviously other creative services. And then it just grew from there, from
Hmm.
first taking their headshots to designing their business cards to, well, how, what do I do now? Like, what? So I have a headshot, I have a business card. What do I do? I'm like, go sell. Well, how do I do that? Utilize social media. Well, how do I do that? I'm like,
Hmm.
okay,
Hmm.
here's how you do it. And so I'm like, it's not even just creative agency. It's like taking people from broken to business to go from like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm very stuck, to, hey, I can actually sell my creativity and make money from it. So that's how the brand management was happening.
Yeah.
A lot of it was storytelling, which is why Bill Pierre Ford was like, we want to use you
Mm.
because you are a minority, you're a woman,
Hmm. Mm.
and this is a good story to tell, you
Yeah.
know? Hmm.
So entrepreneurship, so it starts rolling, and Seattle's one of those places that to where people want to be an entrepreneur in their own, hopes and dreams and everything. And a lot of people don't, most businesses don't make it, especially small
Hmm.
businesses. So as they're coming to you, how important is it once you start realizing a person is kind of just, maybe you're not made for this? How important is brutal honesty?
It is very important. Like, I'm gonna tell somebody, "Hey, that's not your good side. Turn your
Hmm.
cheek the other way. That's not
Hmm.
your good side." I don't know
Hmm.
what people are telling you. It's really important for me to be honest with people because I never want to sell them on a fake dream.
Yeah.
I think I will tell them, "Hey, you're not ready yet," or two, you have too much pride. That's actually not how it works. So I have
Yeah.
to make a lot of I have a lot of conversations on that alone as an entrepreneur, is pride. So you have to be brutally honest because at the end of the day, to me, the numbers game is not the money. It's how many people can I impact for them to take action on that big city dream that they have and actually do it. And so when I talk to people, whether you are a mentee student, an intern, or a client, I have to ask them, what are your strengths? And I would rather you tell me the truth so I can bet on your strengths and not bet on your weakness, because you will not survive entrepreneurship if you lie to yourself.
Hmm.
And so you have to, right?
Were many were many open to that
Very open.
criticism, constructive criticism? Just because, I mean, it's honest, very honest.
Yes, they were honest because it validated where they knew their weaknesses were. And for
Hmm.
someone to have said, hey, I can say these things because I had done it, I lived it.
Hmm.
So they saw me as someone who isn't just selling a service, but they really did see me as their mentor. They're like, I trust you because you're living the life and you have the confidence I wish I had.
Hmm.
And so it's my duty to be honest on how hard it is to be an entrepreneur. It's not easy. They sell that to you on social media. All you need to do is create a whole month's worth of social media in one day and you're Gucci.
Uh,
No, it's
no,
not.
it's so saturated out there with just
Mhm.
false consultants and false experts, right?
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
When did the love affair with Washington State kind of just start dwindling? Because we're
Uh,
both here now. We're both in
right.
Texas. A lot of folks that are watching us right now are Texans
Yeah.
now.
Right. I think in all my journey, God has always told me where to go and what to do. The reason why I feel like I it had expired was a lot of hardships were on my plate. Conrado's mom is dying. Um, I am getting very sick in my health and I am burnt out. Conrado and I were fighting all the time. It
Mm.
was even to the point where even before we moved to Texas, I said, "Hey, I'm gonna get my own apartment, and you cannot come with me." That was me saying I want out, and then also our nest got hacked, and I felt like my identity was like, this is not what I
Mm.
want. I don't want to do this. And there's something about Seattle. There's this like gray cloud, obviously, of like your only possibilities only reside from here to there, and nothing was growing outside of it, outside of that possibility. I don't know if it's politics. I don't know if it's
It's
because we've been
interesting.
in COVID for way longer than the rest of the world.
That's
You know.
it's interesting that you say that because, of course, like with politics, social issues, and and also the pandemic having come. I mean, after there was a lot of things that came into that with me,
Mm-hmm.
but When after we had left,
Mm-hmm.
and of course the weather, but after we had left and we came back the following year, which was last year. As soon as I got there, and like you just went like this, and I was just like, well, that's exactly how I felt. As soon as I got off the airport, started driving around. It wasn't necessarily the weather. There's the lay of the land
Yeah.
is here, and you feel just the elevations and the trees and everything. I felt claustrophobic almost immediately, and I felt kind of just engulfed again. I was like, what is this feeling? Right? Because after being here, a lot of folks out there know that Texas, especially Dallas, Fort Worth area, most of Texas flat, and you
Flat.
see horizons upon horizons upon
It's
horizons, and you could just
it's
see
endless,
it
right?
is. It
Yes.
is. And
Yep.
and I felt it felt so liberating because you just see sky, land, and then you get a chance to just focus on how outward you can be, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that that just resonated almost immediately with me there. So that was the feeling there. There just
Yep.
was this umbrella just was covering you.
There it was an umbrella of you can keep working hard and you're not going to get to your goal. Like it's
Mm,
like what are those Christmas globes
mm-hmm,
that has all like the frilly stuff and then you shake it and that's it. I felt like I'm living in one of those. You know what I mean? Like a
mm-hmm,
Barbie doll. And another discernment happens and God was feeding me questions. And I remember asking Conrado, I was like, what if we got a house in Florida? Because the ideas I was getting was how to get out. I'm like, why am I saying how to get out when I have a successful business? We have a beautiful home. My kids are in private school. Why am I thinking about getting out? And it was all
mm-hmm,
the time. And so whenever I have those ideas, they sit and marinate in my head,
mm-hmm,
and then I say it out loud. And as I say it out loud, it becomes like a normal conversation. What if we got an
mm-hmm,
Airbnb in Florida so that at least I can just get out whenever we want? Turning into actually moving. And after Conrado's mom died, we went to like the after celebration. And our friend who was from Seattle got out. He moved to Texas, came back to the after celebration, the memorial, and this is a person I never ever talked to ever.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Tell me why I get to this party and the first person I see is him. The first person I see is him, and I was like,
mm-hmm,
"How's it going?" Tells me everything about Texas, and it was literally
mm-hmm,
all the questions internally that I had. The one thing that got me to say I'm going there is he said, "Hey, I know you're a business owner. In Texas, they are still behind in development." And you know what I heard? I heard opportunity. I heard opportunity.
almost immediately, right?
I was like, sold. This is
Mm-hmm.
exactly what God was telling me to do. And so from Nate's house, I don't know if you know Nate vibes of I Want Big Boys. We were at his
Yeah,
house.
big boys.
Yeah. So it was his house to our house is like about 10 minutes. And I told Conrado, we have 10 minutes to decide if we're going to move to Texas. Because I feel like that's what God is telling me. And he said, let's do it. I'm like, are you sure? But you're born and raised in Seattle. You guys don't ever leave. And I was like, I'm a professional, like, runaway person. Like, I can do it. I was like, but if you can't do it, I'm going to have to leave you behind. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things like you can't get in my way. He's like, no, let's do it. He's like, I know when God talks to you, you're very obedient
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and we're going to do it. So we did it in 6 months. We made sure that we did it in 6 months because people were saying, she's not going to do it. They're not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I hear that, I'm always like, watch me. So, of course, we made sure to make our goal and to start this new life. And so we've been here ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I know, and that's when Conrado and I basically reconnected when we were over here, and we barely were even connected back then. And he told me about your
Right.
story, and I definitely wanted to hear your part of it, and it aligns. And now here you are, and I know what you guys are, what you both are here, and how immediately your importance to the Filipino community is, because that's kind of one of the main things that I've realized over here in Texas stuff, like like you had said, they're behind, and it's a little slower, a lot, there's a lot more, you're people are a lot more content with the current situations, but us coming from the West Coast, and just even the coast, it's like we're movers, we want to move,
Right.
move, move, and things will happen almost if
Mm-hmm.
you've got that type of drive, right? You
Right.
guys got in very quickly into the
Yeah.
community, the Filipino community,
Yeah.
or in the Dallas area.
Yeah.
But then
It
that was just the thing. It was just,
it wasn't supposed to be that way. It wasn't because then back in 2022, I went to the ER in March, and they overdosed me on morphine, and I was basically like dead for like 30 minutes. I didn't
Oh,
have
good God.
oxygen. They had to give me Narcan, and so it was a whole mess. So of course, starting over in Texas was like, this is my way out from telling people, sorry, I'm done with business, get my kids out of school and relocate. And I was gonna rest when I got here. Tell me why the first week that we get here we meet Mark.
I heard at the
Why? At the
bubble tea
bubble tea
joint,
shop, and keep in
your
mind
bubble tea group.
it was supposed to just be like, hey, oh, our friend is having an event. He's engagement speaking. And in Seattle, we know what that looks like. Tell me why we go to this bubble tea shop and it's like six people and Mark is
Yeah.
soft spoken. I can barely
Mhm.
hear him.
He's a sweetheart.
I'm like, this is not a networking group.
No.
This is not an event. What are we doing here? So we obviously open our mouth and they're like, what, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah.
Told them what we do in Seattle, and of course they're excited. I'm always like,
Yeah.
did we just get signed up for something we didn't want to do? So it's been like that.
Casallo called it voluntold.
Yes, we were voluntold because they're like, oh, you do branding? Okay, you create the logo. Oh, you do pictures? Okay, you create
Yeah.
you create the social media. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I guess. So it turned
Yeah.
into something of course, what it is today.
Yeah. I told and you're saying the same thing as I had felt when I came over here, because when you're in Washington with all the things going on, every like all the little things, whether like you said, social issues, politics, all this stuff during that time, it was very prevalent during that time in Washington.
Right.
Running force, and I just wanted to rest when I got here, and I did
Yeah.
rest for quite a bit. But you were saying you wanted to rest, but what, like you said, like 6 days later, here you are, part
Yeah.
of Pace, what
Yeah.
eventually became Pace,
Mm-hmm.
your venture with the
Yes. The
that
Filipino.
was
Mhm.
amazing. Just the first year,
Yeah. We had no
Psh,
idea. We did in 3 months. We were like, we just want 2,000 people to come.
unbelievable.
7,000
Yeah,
people. And I was just like, it was very crazy how it ended up.
yeah,
But we're like, wow, this is exciting. That's that see a need, fill a
yeah.
need, you know?
Lone Star Palenque, which
Mm-hmm.
was definitely a need, because especially us West Coasters in thick areas of just with Filipino community centers and everything like that, and everybody's just used to it. That's what you do every year, and then you come over here like, what do you guys do? Bubble tea and
Mm-hmm.
and barbecue. So yeah, and you knew immediately. I mean, it was always it was something that was natural to you, and especially also with Conrado, was as much of a person, social person, as a salesman that he is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we made a promise to ourselves that we're going to do everything differently when we move.
Hmm.
Is we're going to say yes to everything. And we did. We got invited to so many Filipino parties, so many churches, so many events. And we just said
There you
yes,
go.
yes, yes. We
Oh
were
my
traveling.
goodness.
So, of course, this is something we had to say yes to. But we really had, I really, really, really had to like silence the noise in my head just so I can hear exactly how God wants me to do it, because Lone Star Palenque was the name was my idea.
Hmm.
They wanted to do
Hmm.
some kind of Filipino Igorot name that can't even be pronounced or spelled. And I was like, that's the biggest marketing no
No,
no.
no, yeah,
They didn't want Lone Star Palenque. And I said, God told me to say this, and if you don't listen, we're gonna have a unsuccessful event. So you better listen, right? And plus also SEO and branding, technology, and all that stuff. Why I decided, but that's why
awesome name,
it is. That's why it
awesome
is
name.
that name. I was like, we're gonna be
Yeah,
big someday, and people are gonna know us
yeah,
by
yeah.
the Texas Palenque
Lone
group.
Star and then Palenque. Yeah, because everybody goes with Pista, Pista de Pista Sanayon and everything. And
Right.
there's
I
like
can't spell
San Francisco
that.
Pista. It is, but then there's also like right now. I'm not sure if you know the group from Washington, which is
Palenque
Palenque
National.
International.
Yep.
Yeah,
Palenque National. Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
that just touched
Yeah.
it right there, and it's a word now, and it's basically just that buzz that's going around. There's definitely this uprising
Mm-hmm.
of cultural celebrations in
Yes.
these things.
Yeah.
Um, but you're still, as when you moved here, you're still moving forward with Pixel,
I am
correct?
just starting now. I actually had to stop for almost 2 years because of my
Mm-hmm.
health.
Mm-hmm. But
Because of
then
my health.
now, How are
Uh,
you now?
I'm doing better now, and it had to be done. Like if I think about it now and I wrote a book, it was like the reason why we had to get out is because God wanted me to stop this craziness that was happening in my life. And so looking at it now, stopping for almost 2 years because he said I need you to focus and rest. And the moment he said, "Okay, it's time to get up," which was just in April, 2 months ago. Okay? 2 months ago I said, "Okay, I'm going to get back into business." And now I've met way too many people. My
I
calendar is
don't
booked.
envy you
Is
sometimes.
I don't,
You
and
guys are busy.
my calendar is way too booked. I'm in
Mm-hmm.
Zoom meetings all
Mm-hmm.
day long. I'm meeting people. Yes, I'm making money. That's the best part about it. But it's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? But God's like, I need you to learn something now. You're not going to do what you did before. So even as
Mm-hmm.
busy as I am, I'm actually making slower decisions in business. I'm
Mm-hmm.
making slower decisions. I'm being more particular about the people who are in my circle. I'm not just saying yes because it's money. If it doesn't align with my peace,
Mm-hmm.
my family, our purpose, why we are here, and if it doesn't align with our ministry, it's not. It's a hard no. So, because of
Mm-hmm.
this thorn on my side that's going to be forever there, I is totally different than who I was before. I very loud and very in your face. Now I if I exert energy, I actually get sick.
Mm-hmm.
So God is like saying, well, either way you're going to slow down because if you do too much you're going to get sick, right? If you do too much, you're obviously this is not what I want you to do. And so I have no other choice but to slow down
Mm-hmm.
and do it differently.
Much more planned down. Listen, I'm looking at our clock here. I want to be very sensitive with your
Yeah.
time, and because I know you still got the family and everything, and it's
Dinner
almost dinner
time.
time there. I think this is a pretty good place because I've been kind
Yes.
of just summarizing this in my head. The next phase, I mean, you've got this new life over here. You got this new community. You've got new goals. And you're a lot wiser and a lot more. You're more intentional nowadays. What a great spot and phase in your life to continue
Right.
following you at this point. Because I am glad I'm humbled that you even decided to sit down. But I've been wanting to talk to you for a while. I wanted to see where that all derived. Just my first impression of you and how you are in socials and the eyes that you create brands behind and that essence in you that puts it out there. So I'm very excited with what's next. However, I know you guys are miles away from me. You're a few minutes away from me, but I want to be involved somehow. But
I
life
understand.
is.
Yeah, I
Abby, thank you
understand.
so much. Thank you so
No,
much. I
thank
really
you.
appreciate it. I
No,
really
I
appreciate
I
it.
appreciate people like you for even creating a space for us to talk about our story. I think
That's all. That's
that's
really all it is. I mean, if it gets a like, if it gets, we can't get caught up in that,
no,
right?
no.
No, I
It
just love the
is
conversation.
yeah,
It's definitely made an impression on myself. Tell the family I said hi. I'm gonna
I
let you
will.
run. All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
Have a good one.